those of you in the Gambia, welcome to another episode of the Dialectic Space Podcast. Alnal Badi Malam Ibrahim Sonko, Kalia de Nyamen Darong, Ning Sirifo Sonko, Bayo Sonko le Murunta Nankotenke, and Kachata le Purukan Ananjang, Kakacha Kula Mialonko, Bedenning, Kula Mialonko, Abedenning, especially voter registration, Ko Mialonko, Abe Hapun Kang, supplementary voting process. Yes, Bayo Kamuelma.
Yeah, trying to fix something. It's all right.
Yes. So like I was saying, Ning Sonkole Bejang, Brikama Area Council, Transportation
Yeah, bravo.
Councillor, and prominent member of UDP. Yes, Mbemo Ikanemoro. If you're experiencing problems. Allah ni UDP internet o kan do ko Anyway, so once again, kumba fogale nyamen doro ngalon fama ndi waketale. Bulo mutatan do mandinke ali ala nyameng, ala harje dingol la so mbulo mutata. I'm a little occupied right now. Hands are a little full, but we're still gonna try to hold this importance on issues that are important to all of us in the Gambia. So today, Bayo Sonko or Sirifo Sonko Niwole Bejang. Ngatale invite nam nanang. Obviously, he's not a stranger here. He's always here on the show. And nga invite le pura na nga singa kacha kula miyalanko ate personally about champion kane aning mo jama fanang in the Gambia about champion kane science and thing, which is specifically the supplementary voter registration mimbekakang in Gambia, and questions around eligibility mol miyalanko foi qualified talabam puluka register puluka voters card in Gambia omu kula de miyalanko abe kacha abe ninkacha la bilo to Gambia science and thing and kukuma balo nal hakilo ya mak hakilo alia I remember from last week, Nimbuaka Sidik, Jambe Finansita Jane. We break down a lot of issues around voter registration, especially Tanjeno Tomia Lonko. We told they made reports of people being involved in that process, and also we've seen recently allegations of member of National Assembly, Mia Lonko Fanate Fananto Finta Jibakele. So questions around that, Mbobe Kachala. But if I'm Honorable Alaji Usin Dabola interview, I mean, can be with Kerfado Bantaba and Bofanan Kachalale, issues that he highlighted. Sirifo will talk about that. And then other current affairs around media regulation. Ismail interview bi I mean get anim fali ofana mukula de miya kombo kachala do maninkele. But most importantly as well, memin fanan kachala wolam nyinti IEC la registration and conversations around political movements ila registration call. Aliaje fanan Omar Malmo fanan fela fanan join anala uncle lebetara jambi wala noka kanyame but Omar nin Sirifo, thank you both for coming. Sirifo, welcome to the show. Ibenyadi.
Marno memborra. Marno memborra.
Amambori. Ako Omar ako borda.
Marno la fungo bi. Marno memborra. Barna asapor nyama atentula koma nalo ayankan wotile na akweta malo ko ayankan wotile asapor nyama atentula koma na yina ndo nyana abe chokosilale.
Hey, but it's Sirifo, in Omar, how do you guys do it? Because clearly, last time Kabrin Kachara no.
Ibrahim, I mean, thanks for having me here. Pro na Kacha Gambia kola kome yalo nyamendoro. Hakili kilimanka hakilti. And more than baby la kata kola kikan more be la mirror focus. So I'm always happy to be here. Whenever I'm here, I feel like home. And this is why I feel like home. It's like, I mean, Jamu Sonko Kunali.
Jamu Sonko Kunali.
And be Sonko Kunali Vijang. I know if blow in the Santo be Jamu Sonko Kunali.
Omar, ini mbare benyadi.
Ala Ibrahim, ngai alam bari ngol dam mala benta jang.
Ha, yo
Kombari ya fu
fanyalande.
nyamin drong akan da kontan moro. Gambia len tol be sula annun koringol nena buka bori. Annun e ka to nyala fasa annun talata walla.
Wow. How is that in that
Yo,
way?
mbari na do ko at all levels, I respectably,
Yeah, I'm
inasa
making
agree,
I'm not
inasa
going to
disagree.
put.
Baya mbiketel moy Omar den ko moy la yala tebe Gambia UDP internet la bete bunte ni Omar America internet la bentel block on so
Mbari mbuka moy.
bike moy ala internet o do ko okay moy kan
Yeah,
Tere.
so ndabe lare min na wala nyinte ko whatever we do, most of the opposition karo ndamo oppositional te ndako do no fono
Yeah,
ndamo oppositional te ngada mala masa kundale of
Yeah,
course
I think.
abanda fo karam wala bo mo ko rente masa kunda kudo la nyanda so la banko kan ndabe jikiri wala mbelare wala yo mbelare fanan ko momo be oppositional ko wol be nyantale be kambeng ni man kambeng fanan momo etel jikita minna ko wala sa falingo sambanan no comité la ftala nyaming mbe bula no wara dan ko dro mo kana bula mo no mi yalon ko be masiyala ka tambe sanji tan so akumara bakara pour kan dado nyin kacaado mimbe dending molla min nyanta kala referee nyin ko ko nan nyanta kala tilingo nin tonya tamande lalti nyin ko ko ani be barol nin kuol min ke kaida kata kuol to wala kulto min yalon ko mole sikki sakol so doje pour nga kacan no walla kad wala ko kuma ballet so kon danda bakala kana jambi kanda do waka chanyin do mara fu nga fa yudi pin ko lela pour ye iPhone 17 Pro Max ambari ye digital equipment ol sangay ye internet jama diale bare man la fi wakala ni man la fi wakala woto mbari din nan tan mbari yata tan la tala da min tabe min dilala ngodi ala woto
ha
ha
I know but nga jibe
yeah
ba wallahi fala internet o ala internet o is a problem UDP ko nyanta ku kala de siri fo ka do ko mbe kala he needs a reliable internet connective connection and also a very good phone as a kachake no minna
24 hours akatudo ko dronna la akatudo ko
ko le
dronna
fo
dalla ko ndaka fa mo
ha
bare hibe fam falal
but I casino for now. Hanisa
no
nyada
no no
for je kala ko siri fo
apokasino
casino. Like he's just from one to another, which is great. But I think we also need him such that he needs to be fresh. He needs to be energized. He needs because health for kumat babakel. Ite nyinku be kon
yeah
no nyala dum.
that's right bara butung
Yeah.
ka yalo ning politiko yala te ni dunda ko no moro foi fata ko na ko yale
I know. I call it back.
every minute a new thing is coming into the head and every other time it's like you're high speed man.
I know.
So
I
wala
know.
nanda buga regular politician will blame back because it becomes part of your life and your everyday activity.
Yeah.
So Maring honey jang 12 o'clock suit. Don't go 9 o'clock doing 12 o'clock. What time is it? It's almost 4 hours. Like what
I'm
time do you
telling you
sleep?
because yeah,
You
call
know?
what for Zasoto. He's so
Yeah,
available.
but
Anyway,
one thing I do know is he can oppose certain side, but interpersonally his tolerance is unmatched. That is what a lot of
yeah.
people need to understand that political ate, any more better campaign no la barabutung, nga ken no hormone mbunya kono la nyala mi yalan ko amoro. I will oppose you in a way that I think, intalaftantale, jar or whatever. And at the end of the day, we all go back to the same homes because we're all family, you know.
And that's what I also
So
like about him. It's just his understanding of his relationship and how important it is with people.
right.
It's a political kino nya, we can all disagree. But I think Al Hadamadia is top notch, is crazy. Sometimes even some of us who become a little too critical of Atabe Diamond, when he reaches out, it's hard not to listen to him because of the manner.
Yaron Nambaring literally was like, you know what, you gotta come to the UDP. And it's difficult to even say anything because look, first, this is your family. Second, this is a person that respects you a lot. This is a person that gives you maximum tolerance. This is a person that is every day inviting. You like a mold sila patilla. But I'm gonna mold the Minkan and I mold and never mold it mold me from and I saw some guy somehow. It a month long, it a month just because, Mama la kordabe you so mafong you live around that end, once in a while I just pass you. Nana buka for you sabe sinkor ita ko ndamanya na follow ko IEC nyanda tilim na lakaro is supporting that is like support for UMC and then you hate UMC and then you feel you can just castigate or insult people out of nothing you
Yeah.
know ita ka mol jibe min yalon ko ita man baraka wal tatol ya mo man baraka wal ita ka fole wal musula wala wallati like do be je
And,
famonde and multi yalon ko what they do is you use the political figures photo ite okay la Facebook profile or okay la Facebook wall so mol ka wala je and then mol ke ite yaka wala ko ite ko wala agenda sell by insulting people how are you helping this person
I know.
you know
Yeah.
So this is what some people within the opposition need to understand. Castigating, insulting, and trying to vilify, demean, or being condescending to people does not help your political party because moro.
I know. And it's crazy you're mentioning that because for the first time on the internet ever, Omar, I called somebody that I know for a long time from UTG that a foolish adult. And looking back at it, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have done that. I call him an idiot. I call him very foolish because he wrote something really out of line. No, for real. And this somebody I know, I used to respect at the university, but political atina because of menteng, obviously I need to become Mabola. Menteng is a family member. You can attack his politics and whatever, but if you try to go personal on him, Gambia
right. Exactly.
And so we all know each other, and so that's an individual that I know very well from the University of the Gambia that we did student politics, and you know how that goes. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to go I didn't go personal. I just told him, look, it attack me nothing, you are guilty of it. You come online, you caricature people, you demean people, you belittle people. Like you sort of do those kind of things, especially on social media. And on top of that, you are a nominated member of public office. So I do think that people need to identify Karela with a level of decency and respect, especially in public office. Omar Malmo Sambou, I've lost you for a second. Lost a Sheriffo for a minute, but but thank you all very much. I told me baby Jang, those on YouTube and in Facebook for now. We appreciate all of you being here. Sheriffo, I think there's a campaign to get your mobile phone. So from the GoFundMe will create laba malambang. But we'll have to make something work.
No, it's working. Ideal do we ni wol nyaaye je fan online fan ko ngam woto wala kilo ki maka kuma suke call. Malong, we need to raise a lot of awareness in society and probably a lot more because maybe people don't understand we use the same devices to have conversations sometimes.
Yeah.
But I find I'm like mommy yet along nobody would even go dollar na konya ha but I lambo em block lang kay what em kula ke ku kay di I know like you can have divergence to the highest level, but this is a very respectful person and respects everybody for whatever your opinion might be. But you cannot be condescending on everybody because the fact of the matter is that moro, everybody have a limit when it comes to tolerating certain things. And then most of the times you see people who try to demean other people or character assassinate them or trying to bring them down. They're guilty of some of those things.
Yeah, of course. And kuya fa nyamen do nganyolon ndol be nganyolon ne Gambia
right.
so control funding kelo. Everybody know everybody. Be nganyola track record lonne. But Sheriffo Feleko, we should create a GoFundMe puruka mobile and Sheriffo. So I don't know how that's gonna go, but Omar, that's the public call.
UDP lebe doku min na je moti je mimba doku la. Not at the council, not at the party level, not at the national level. Jani ka muru nangola for Ibrahim kay ko do bi jeni ngambari njibenka malla fam because mbaren ka kato minke to bring people to the UDP. Aka kato min fam ke hana tara fam ina mantra ku kilingo aka nyinya min tandila ka hormone mbunya min tandila. Hana tara alfaya be dawo dato he still gives you that maximum respect. Wolon ku de minka mosi molla politiko kon. Bara dol bi je killing wala itama momi long ite man tolu badi ngol tar dalo ite wuli dro ite be mod nenna andu ite usenda wala talo tayo kela profile oto wol man tra UDP mako e ka and wala nyante fonyo wala mo killing wala bara telephone kendo nyanda wadi lalde aning all these devices yara ko nyako always in the pipeline hani sai o man nanandi
no kana wori
do be kam fala
no kana wori ko be bedal kana wori yalo sante na fo elembe mena studio sifaile la jang na do ko be senala la set
anyway sai meduna kaja ko
no na pol mon kolya
no bari mo mi bon son damal no isula de mobile wala yo for nyawnya isi mobile ni correct internet 50,000 yen mindi lo bankanya. Now this is the time for UDP diaspora pour la nyo kan ye mobile kendo nyine ani wifi mi yalon ko second ne ka do
go na pra ka wotendendi na tendendi
anyway so me kata da Omar
Electoral kabe Electoral ko akabe I am promise on gola 16 Pro Max nana makeda You understand? You know, kabana ta nalo system pro max akata ngoto mo ila UFC be like a guy going na ako ko limin lefta limin yalo ko lefta system pro max puta mala ako e ka fu UFC man guy ni wala system pro max di don dol yalo ko dol do mutalam bulola. No, but otherwise, yeah. You guys, I will pull it, man. Everything is step by step.
No, for sure. Anyway, I'm gonna do katakono because what jamati je so ku kan Gambia. But kuma la father la dami wolam the registration process we make hearing. The Brikama Area Council, including Chairman Yankuba Dabo. Yes, Yankuba Dabo, I think has gotten into some public backlash because of Kumon Minfo, especially in terms of sacrifice, political sacrifice. But you know, that's not the essence of the question. The question that I do want to ask is, what do we see so far that is ongoing? IEC Fanang, there is a duplicate of about 2,000 people during the registration process. I mean, discover, but also there are allegations of minors being, you know, sort of put together to try to register to get voters card in the Gambia. There is just a lot of information. Clear and IEC Fintan and they had a press conference, and I think they addressed some of those. But Brikama Area Council, of course.
But like, it's like Ibrahima, Ibe Kundukan, Ila Kumoka Kundule.
Bayo come more
I don't know whether it's network.
Even more can never buy.
Bayo kwela kumol ka kundula ngala tala mafangolo ala internet
olong. Ala internet olong. Again, UDP internet, UDP al kuke, please. Nalman kuke and tolbe go phone me create la Sonko.
UDP tonyebula, you know. Na ongula internet olong, you know. Ongol number internet on yin lele. Karumala fila diamo ka kundu.
I know. But Omar Janim Bada Sotala, maybe inside that no tell. So far.
Go. No, ndakana call beka jana bilando network Kenya alam dolo, you know.
Because last time for the cabin see the network or the same, can have a network Kenya.
No, okay. Hello, gadla do you know, but let me. I don't know today. No be okay ben fakan.
No, it's okay. Memo can boje tuje dorong. But we're just gonna start with Omar. Omar Ngajele, you are addressing a lot of Joe Colley, member IEC. In fact, the last post that I saw specifically addresses competence questions of Joe Colley in terms of whether he has the capacity and the leadership and the competence to manage the incoming elections, including the ongoing registration. What is your observation so far?
So first on the registration, you know, it speaks to, you know, government incompetence and of course, you know, malgovernance in the country. You know, mune ati nangovo ni aje ko bankola kaitolo asoni ata jauke kasoto nyimbanko kan. Waya ata ndilo ko masakunda tilinding masakunda sobele mantra bankoka.
Okay.
Nyimbanke kuti min that damu tatabi. We've seen scandals on our diplomatic passports. We've seen scandals on our national documents, and all of these things have been so to actually see people fraudulently acquiring, you know, birth certificates and then, you know, other documents of the nation, you know, that does not speak to the IEC. It speaks to the institutions that are responsible to protect our national, document. So ni masakunda and tola kaitolo bolebo puntum pantana do labeto. Wofo nyanta kela moli alonko nyimanke masakunda sobeti and untold these people, the citizenry of this country are not protected. That means anybody can come and then, you know, tomorrow and then, you know, in Tolunga Kaito means or banku dingo lite fana ebola chikala ya adila. So masakundala incompetence wala be lankena makanyundula. And then all these political parties, NPP ni mokaba non tolente, it speaks to their government and their governance system. It speaks to their incompetence. And it speaks to, how, the credibility of the election process would be questioned because of the government's incompetence. Because min nada ke isula da banko din kaito lele isula da banko la kaito. Jumala kodi. Obe jumala la protection okono masa kundalo. So if those documents are not protected, who is to be blamed for it? It's the government. How are people acquiring? From whom are they acquiring them from? From the government officials. So the government in its entirety is to be blamed for everything that is happening. But I will diate tolie because it all coming ka wala nyindeko alangata di mo be nga and wol they will say that karnyol le adin tolla ndol man kanyim banko dingol de barka bir nyima sakunda na da wolle kaytol din tolla tol be nga soto woto mbebe carte fayla wolle de lonjukal nyima sakunda is built on those manipulative tactics of let's give everybody and whoever you give if an ka bare karla masakunda de wolle kaytol din tella so woton defana wode I am indebted to those people. Now, when it comes to Joe and the way they are going about things, along IEC mamming understand. It made dandula along. Ni made dandula lo eke fon dunkula to me along ko are not within your responsibility. But that also speaks to government negligence because ni man sakunda man kaitol protect. And dung itebe IEC nyabe mulla clearly ko inin kaitol min kana man ke tonya nin tilingod. Even though it's not your responsibility, you will tend to do things beyond your mandate, trying to question people's documents here and there. O man kaitol la do kwot. Ela doku minte ka kaito jibe, is it from the right authority? But if the right authority gave it fraudulently, probably you have a way to question that. But to look at people who came with their national documents, many along itamanka adila, you are not the authority to give that, and you want to question that. Itamanka police, itamanka regulatory authority on that aspect. What exactly are you doing? But the funny thing would be to have them organize a press conference trying to. Who are they addressing it to? The opposition should actually fix birth certificate issues. Let them go and speak to the government about all of those because sign ni nata ibo fo kantenite fontenite book a birth certificate di opposition book a birth certificate di mansa kundala kadi. National documents are all given by what? The regime. If there are fraudulent activities about how people are acquiring it, who is to blame? It's the regime. But for you to come and then, throwing rhetorics to the opposition or probably, a movement that is not registered yet, and even making quotations of the constitution that you don't even know, that speaks to gross incompetence and inability to actually, lead us into the election cycle. One thing about me is not even about this registration process. I never believe that Joe has the competence, the capability, and of course the ability to lead this country to to a free and fair election, because that is not an independent person in the sense that IEC have a scandalous financial issue with the government, and government is single law IEC la scandals on in terms of financial mismanagement, and of course sending over 301 million of taxpayers money into their private accounts. So momi ya longo abukolo ko bininda ngakuriya ke ite nyaenge moro hani yen nem fontan jolela because mbaba ila kia kanan lankena mat. So I will be indebted to do whatever you want. So this guy cannot be independent because Masakunda be siring ala fenna kang mi alonko, he was the deputy to the former electoral chief. So if that leadership is considered to be corrupt, and of course to the point that they were sending state monies into their personal accounts, how could Joe be different, or how could he be exonerated from that? So this is a guy that I believe that is conflicted. He's incompetent in terms of the way he was actually putting himself out. Adiamuta nyame we atandile ko itema makamo soto, ima londo soto, ima faramanso soto, and ima ability soto to lead this country into its next election. And this guy could, in a way, in my belief, set this country in flames in the way things are going. Because amantara tilingon into nyata mandeka, and amanke motimi yalon kabetilina. And I see people, look, moro kanyin kurusu balle kamoro meke mo ke motilindindi. We have seen a lot of people who use religion to bamboozle people, to deceive society, to make themselves look very pious and straightforward. No. If they are straightforward, 301 million of Gambia's money will not be going into separate accounts fraudulently. So people many along imam foroya antolini na kodo tema. Wolbe foroya no antolini na election o tema nyadile. So until the whole
That's a
issue is
good
not
point.
even about them versus UMC or other. It's about IEC being adjudicating a free and fair election. And I don't believe in the current crop of folks who are there based on their action, their diction, and of course their activities and actions. So wala mukulti mini along kontema lako mol mini alonko, they are accused of fraudulent activities. They are accused of financial embezzlement, or they are accused of actually taking public funds and putting into separate private accounts. Wala manke motilindinti wala nyanda those people should be suspended and be taking to take care of their financial scandals until they are completely, off that before they come to actually lead our election. So Joe, in my view, is not a credible person to lead us into 2026 elections. Second, his current activities, actions, and diction have suggested that he is biased and he is not impartial. He is actually there to be a puppet of the regime who has his dossiers of financial malpractices, according to what was reported to us about the IEC. So in the latter world, and I believe in one thing. I might not support, nkanna uncle support, but na uncle la boss support. But I am a believer that, of course, until we begin to take a radical approach, towards the election in December, this regime respects no other people in the Gambia except Gala. And welcome in Tanila wala nyindiko tilingon intonya mbalondi la nyimbanko kana sini wala sina nyim wala wala long. But acting all Father Christmas and acting all nice, oh we are law abiding here and there, that does not scare people like Sidinjai who are hell bent on destroying fabric of society just to make sure that this regime remains. So that is basically what I actually observe in it altogether. The IEC and the government are complicit in a way or another about document frauds, and also, with their rhetorics and their, actions and dictions, the way they're going about things, it does not speak to impartiality.
I mean, I think Omar, you raise very important points. I think I've always argued that the fact that President Ole Sambou to elect, or not to elect, to hire the leader of the Independent Electoral Commission, that in itself skews the entire process, right?
And yalo noko president ole afala sukuta mitu no to ko ate mo mota do ko wala be nyanta atela dala la mutala.
Ha.
Jumale IEC ta do ko wala.
Ate.
So wala nyanta jumala dala mutala from his statements.
Ate phone.
But yala abola kekan alkalol ni mo koten wala intimidating them, threatening their positions and all of it. So moming kete jo kodola ka every month that alkalol le jo ako alkalol be nyanta tel dala mutala. Alkalol ka landi modol la satel kono free le ka ding sabati dinkral di wal. Those people will be indebted to those people for life. So walta ajela ila alkalol ye buy and all of that. So that in itself is election fraud. Did you see IEC frown at that? But these people will not be impartial. For them, it's about the status quo, doing what the regime wants so that they can remain in those positions, because they also indebted to the regime. Adam Malay Palazzo didn't tell IEC.
And that's the exact point.
Right.
And that's my exact point. It's the same problem with I mean, so the Sonko be muting it. Bayo be muting it. Bayo be muting it.
No,
Bayo.
Ongol me moy follow. Ka 1 minute dala janna ke moy.
Bayo. Anyway, I come to Biola Internet is experiencing I don't even know how to describe it. This is the height of internet problem in Gambia. But yes, Omar, you raise important points, like I was saying, because
Yes.
sign no kan moy. Oh my god. Ntol tara la fonga kacha ang continent kono ngam fay kacha do kono. But Bayo la fe ni kal just can you confirm for moy kan neba?
Yeah, today I don't know. Today my
If you're using Wi-Fi, can you switch to regular data, Bayo, please? Yo, niggas will be a bit out of dark. Bayo. Okay, if you're using
Omar la moyo kanna, come aka kuntla bar men wala moyo kanna. I will fix the internet very soon.
Yes, if you can use pocket data instead of Wi-Fi, if you're using Wi-Fi, maybe that would probably be better because no one tend to catch a no. Omar. But I'm gonna buy a call man via WhatsApp. Omar. But be on BD. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Yunus. Thank you. I see you. Sekou Sise, Allah Baraka. Mark Jani. Mark, mobile okay, boy. I'll cook it by way. Because this is not normal. Ali Unyang, thank you guys so much. Please, I told remember Facebook, ngal dani, I'll tell YouTube, I'll subscribe for them, to support what we're doing. Facebook is great, but they don't do it. But ila uncle dal ngamram batut la komale man, because this is very intrusive in a way.
Alafengo mandradaga.
Mbata can I join through WhatsApp, buddy. Abuka doom phone, you know.
It looks like his internet is bad.
Yeah, but Omar, I have another. We're gonna react to that issue very briefly, which is Yankubala's statement when he made that comment. I understand very well where you're coming from when you say that Nyimman Sakunda, we can't take them on just being, lackadaisical or just being the nice person or the nice guy. Change doesn't happen just being nice. I think people make sacrifices. People make sacrifices sometimes to such extent that they lose their life. That is not new, but also we understand the concept and principle of a democracy and the idea of one person, one vote. And then if we are not comfortable with a particular voting system or a particular leader, not a voting system, a particular leader, but that brings in us to the question of when we know the election is already lost even before we start. But also, leaders have a responsibility, and they need to be accountable for the comments, the things that they do, also the things that they say. I think occupying an office comes with even a bigger responsibility. And so, my question is, do you see comments like that from an individual who has a record of making very inflammatory statements, or even to some extent, some would say incendiary statements like that, considering the statement that he also made when his court case was going? Kabra ba matindi, nanama fon sa funyadi, ndolbele ka ba matindi. But still, I think sometimes it may be important to tune it down, right? And it's not everything that has to be confrontational, and this is not popular, but this is what I think. I like Yankuba. I like what he does. I think I think he's a smart person, and I also think he's very responsible and doing a great stuff for West Coast region. But I do think sometimes those around him, or those that know him, those that are part of his party, in my considered opinion, need to tell him to sometimes maybe explore diplomacy. If we exhaust that, then nothing works out. We can try other alternatives of do or die. Nobody has to die. It doesn't have to come to that.
I want to say this. This excessive diplomacy has affected Davos politics for a long time. I used to believe that every other time is like, no, alua bunya kadende. Ini ika lua bunya ini mulela dokola mini lua bunya lua chroma. Along, if you understand geopolitics in Africa, Africa no local affair, but like faka, abe faka to momina, he expects you to be silent, not hanika na wuru found. Because for me, some things are really, I wouldn't say some of the things that are said, but I also want to believe in the fact that this regime is hell bent on manipulating everything and making sure that they do anything and everything to remain in power. So in a situation like that, where you know that there is no level playing field to make sure that all people go and seek the mandate of the people, freely and fairly, then you cannot subject yourself to subjugation at all times. Because yeah, imagine the lady that was in Tanke, itaka fenkol nyinika di molla, birth certificate, me along itamanke birth certificate giving authority. Wali yo kaito lo bonde muntole. Ya bondi Mansakunda le bulu. So Mansakunda in their responsibility to make sure that they protect all citizens and all documents that belongs to Gambian call. But look at this Mama Jabi. Do you know that Mama Jabi is actually a Guinean? But she's every day in the president's political entourage, insulting the UDP, insulting the opposition on a daily basis. So who will tell you that they will not give all our documents to these kind of people? So there needs that radicality to tell people that we are going to make sure that there is rule of law respected in this country, because any multi but again, where there is a level playing field, some rhetorics I would feel that they are really on the high side for one to actually make. But let's bring it down to UMC's current issues with the IEC. If you think diplomacy will solve that, that will be the biggest mistake that they would do. Because IEC Ning Mansakunda will try every means to suppress you, and they expect you to be silent. What kind of a thing is that? Because the whole point is that UMC have submitted their documents in a long time. They've been reviewed, but why is it taking IEC several months? Is a delayed tactic to avoid this political movement to get into its prominence within society, to go and do all the vigorous campaign that the regime is doing. So Alinge told delay until towards December, and then probably by the time we give them, they don't have enough time to actually go into their campaign or to actually get the votes that they may deserve. So IEC is tactically playing, by the games of the regime. So that tells that the only way you can go about that is fire for fire. And I believe in that. More so when it comes to a regime that is hell bent on self-perpetuation, it cannot all be nice. Momanta motora la jande. Barembe min fola nyoe mba fola nyoe tilingo ninto nyakanala. We've heard ministers. We've heard ministers from this regime telling us that na jarta yela bonga lebe yelo bonna. Ebe nyumala yelo bonna nyumbangoka.
And
Moro
Omar,
na jarta
to
wala na
make the
polo
point.
tilingo ninto nyubangoka weke. But
No,
Abutu,
Mambalang.
we cannot be allowed to be threatened by the regime while we all sit and play the Father Christmas game. I don't believe in that.
And
Even though I don't support Cuba, but to an extent, I don't also refute some of the things that are because Walibe Kelo meaning all political parties in the Gambia did what the UDP is doing in all this registration fengo. More kuo dolebe je walibe banale. Boy
I
tilimbali
agree.
amimbe
I,
ibuka but
I think I agree with
opposition
you to some
system
extent.
be ga sisa tara tengundingi be nyabe kazi kan non dolbe loi bato la loi bato e ka loi bato molle kama min yalon ko le loi horoma para mol min yalon ko man horoma so don tol loi le wol be loi tinya ne ben banko na furo sunya la ka diate nyami ibe tilimbali yani tajidin de akela ibe kayto dila dindi mere ngol la kata na banko la kayto bu ko tissue paper in the streets. How are you going to respect is that respect for law in our country? I don't believe in that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you to some extent, Omar. And honestly, I think you raise very important points once again, as you often so eloquently do. But Yalong Fanang, Omar, Ndolu, Nabanko, if you look at our recent history, and I get it, I condemned, I condemn when the government makes it, when Demba Sabali and Barrow and his executive or members of the NPP make it. I think I condemn them equally as I would perhaps condemn or even caution Yankuba Dabo when he makes statements like that. Because at the end of the day, right? Ntolu ngalo neko is not unique to Gambia. African continent or countries in Africa all around, our system is replete with election conflicts, and it mostly arises from just some things as what many would consider as basic as what is happening right now in Gambia. But yeah, for Nyaming, these are almost like a ticking time bomb. Metara sira kan ne dono ibi kalong dimbabe malala wato min, right? So I think all of our leaders have a duty and even a responsibility to behave themselves according to law, to behave themselves in a way that would unite Gambians but not to divide Gambians. I get what you're saying. The government is perhaps more complicit. They are much more reckless. They are, in fact, arguably much more irresponsible than anybody else. But we cannot fight every fire. We cannot fire fire with fire all of the time. What I'm saying is, as a Democrat, and that's why I think I differ with you. As a Democrat, I think there is always an option to try to figure out a way where we could come to a consensus through a way that all of us, one person, one vote, would get to decide that if push comes to shove, I don't think anybody should just stand Kafuko. We have to sacrifice our life for this.
Ibrahim, let me give you this little bit of chronology of events that had happened within this regime. Yalo noko kabiri nyimansa kunda nata ila tilimbali ya ni tajidinte ya ni kuriaka e control ko momodo sabaleta palasi marano la nyimbanko kan kotenke kabiri UDP ata ko balon de la malon fo busumbala lombam e kata keno la jam bare kabiri to sula ta le muneke ye wolbe burukale andeni nata nang itolo ko wala to la presidential advisor moro tilingo nin to nyale o koto. Now, more killing all Kabiring. I remember one chatty guy, Kabiring Momo Sabalo Sonko Bekeri. We've seen how police only brutalize o minkewala. Na para German Gavo UDP people come out, putting an alabute kotenki. Exactly. Yalong will be a janne. So moro tilimbalia manke kudimi along kadamu tata bila, but will be kono. You've never seen a retaliation from the United Democratic Party. Ngajele ya ala ni sanji tansabo, sanji mwani mfulo be kono. Tilimbalia ni tajidinte emira la nyama. Abe late kana, but you've never seen them retaliate in a negative light because their party leader is always like, moro nga bula luano, manga bula luano. Moro ning Senegal, Usman Sonko nyole sonta kom ka bula luano, matendo mbiabe kasokono. Asake maybe biafata. So the system in Africa is such that it is the regime that actually calls for this violence because people push you all the way to the wall, but they expect you to do nothing or say nothing. So until regimes continue to begin to do the right things, because look at what they are doing to UMC Moro. So, but then, of course, UMC have been abiding by the laws and, of course, being calm and all of that. They got to the point that they imagine the IEC boss coming out and saying all kind of nonsenses to this movement. And, of course, you will not even mention their name. You are throwing jabs at people that, But UDP, with all the things they've gone through in this country, in a major come, it can retaliate more. Maybe kuma kangol dolbi je ilana tambe kumol ka fojel and all of that. But you've never seen them violently reacting to anything, even though the regime has been brutalizing and violently, even to the point killing some of their members and yelolo bonje ko sifa be kela. But ita molla banku din kaito mi alon ko moro ngai katashilo kan ka fo mo hello fang wala fang koleata fang woso donyati. So now tell me, where is democracy? Because democracy also have to go with, the rule of law. And then follow. So if you are not following the rule of law, how do you expect to have a functional democracy? You cannot just have democracy as just a label when in reality what you do is completely, in contradiction to what that is.
Yeah.
And then we've seen the regime and its actors being very condescending towards opposition figures and all of that, and including even the Electoral Commission that needs to be impartial and make sure that there is free and fair equity among all the people or all the stakeholders. So ninga that only walk aside, and then you are trying to castigate other people. You want them to sit down and just watch you. Maybe sometimes people can be so charged and say things, and we can say no moro jemula natambe kumolti getala domanding. But one thing I do know is, and I'm with that conviction, the regime in the Gambia cannot be trusted wholly and solely on diplomacy. Where diplomacy is needed, diplomacy will be done. But where it needs something otherwise, that otherwise will be done. Because this country belongs to all of us, and we will not watch a set of people to actually criminally connive to subjugate a people whom they think that probably because they have power. Even this was in Bojan case, we've seen how the regime tried to actually pin it on the United Democratic Party. But within the 2 years, 6 months, in a man honey, hey, mo UDP nkola. Fanda fan kamfate kam. If I would tell you, that is one of the reasons why ninna nkola mulmambe, because I even wrote letters to the international community copying Yankuba Dabo and copying Useno Dabo, but they never even replied to me. You know why? Because they believe in the rule of law. Ko alanga lua bunya alanga bula lua no makuo nyimbe kiti yolokon. Warakan na kaito di molla mini along ka koit and tenita lokotil one into nyatije. And then you want to wait until revising court or whatever nonsense they call that. By the time you want to think about those things, we are in the elections and all those people go and vote for the regime. And what would you say? Oh, we won. What will you do? You want to go, you have technicalities or whatever they call it, and then the regime continues and Gambians would continue to suffer. So one thing I mean, mira wala nyindu komoro. Na jarta min nambenga willing we protect our national document, because we cannot protect them. Our regime will be mandate so to protect them, and if they are not protecting them and they are leaving them haphazardly, to be acquired fraudulently by any means necessary, and I cannot believe in this government, because this government is built on lies, manipulation, and deceit. Ajala minka o journalist ola jeka finde neka ulia for moleja. And yala no ko yo journalist o by OVP, the simple reason because Talib was invited to his village for a ceremony that Sidinjai was invited to. Ya bondi wala OVP ka tilimbali al nin kuma kalantangol be fo mole ja be fan ya kense kan tonya be lankana mari mol be nyako. So if you see a regime that is on that terrain and the death of the cops, we actually know that of course the regime is not clean about it. How is this regime democratic? We've seen the rearrest of Useno Boja. We've seen the intimidation and harassment of Yankuba Nyolo during the other court case and all of that. So this regime, when it comes to politics, they will do it the most or nastiest way, and of course the filthiest way to make sure that they remain in power. So if you want to be a Democrat and a believer in the rule of law, when itani mimbenyola oma lua bunya ama lua horama, omo lua horama si fault. At some point, diplomacy is necessary, but in some instances, fire for fire is necessary to make sure that, of course, we make sure tilingon into onya tama nyimba koga. Because tilingon into onya tro wala kweta ndol damalu tem.
Bayo kamol moela ba? Malam febe kacha follow kan. Sheriffo. Yeah, Sheriffo dal.
Mbaren boy yankuba ma internet ko rekulu ngoni mbaren na yankuba fa ina buka mbaren samba ku
I know, but I think you and I are having a unfortunately Sheriffo mbo nga try WhatsApp one more time nga jibe. From abadunna no la mala, but now and know I think you and I can really continue. We're having I think this is a very important conversation. Abikaring. But Omar
yeah, okay, guy.
Yes. So again, I think it will be appropriate for us to stick on this point a little bit further.
But I know my network is very bad today.
Yeah, the question I do want to ask you though is this: is you and I know the price of freedom is very expensive. It's not free. nations are not built out of just molkasi bulola nyokang. Again, like my earlier point, sacrifice wala ka bankolo. People's freedom is being fought for. It's not given by any state. But Gambia fanang ngalon na fanang our recent past and compared to since 2016 December president's election, ngamin sort of be and then ngamin sort of kunung himang sangon in Bankola, right? Yes, things are bad, like really bad. I don't even want to underestimate that or understate that, right? And so I do want to ask you, to what extent are we going to rise up to sort of claim our country back? Is it at the expense of if we need to die and put our country into total chaos, where we undergo an experience as a is that what is going to take? Or what we can do, and let me make a point, or what we can do is, essentially allow a due process to take place while we continue to document and we continue to make known and advocate cool silo manta more continue to put that, because election process amanke manzakunda dama, there's going to be independent observers. We've seen Gambia participate, made a joint statement to say that, hey, when the alcalo stamp was taken. So what I'm saying is, it is necessary. Don't get me wrong. And people keep saying, I'm a hater of Young Kubadabo. I'm not. I don't hate any political party. I don't hate any political individual. What exactly? So yeah, no, it's not. No, I'm just making the point. Yeah, and some of these things, sometimes we just have to highlight. People need to understand that these are public individuals, and it's important when they say statements that we interrogate it, we have conversations. The same way in Kasinka, Dr. Cicelo Kuokachanyameng, the same way we talk about everybody else. It's not just about loyalty to one individual, but to what extent are we going to keep pushing? Because again, what you don't want to do is to put us in a position where we are rising up against each other. While it is extremely important we guard our elections against fraud, voters card olu and kudolu. There are other aspects or other people in the community who are also saying they basically disenfranchising other people by going around to tell people convenient that people who are eligible to register and people who are not. That is not a popular opinion, but that is a side that other people are saying as well, and we need to have conversation about that.
That make a lot of sense, Moro.
Yeah.
You cannot be harassing people at registration centers.
Yeah.
You don't go to places and ask people, for them in banko dingol. Ite mu right la so da kamu ko den yin ka fam banko dingol.
Yeah.
Like in what capacity or what authority do you even have to meet me at a registration center to ask me if I know that at a particular point near mole register for any voters card by fintla modo la katara sirim bande ka for yellow voters card dile toli o serial number supply. Do male authority di wal. Sometimes harassing people make you lose votes because you think that you are trying to protect, but when in reality you are just harassing people because but of course, it is our responsibility to make sure that, of course, the right people get the document. But how you go about that also matters. Of course, no one, in my state of being, in a normal circumstances, I will never think that violence is any way going to solve any problems. Where there are challenges, of course, there should be checks and balances. Because because we expected this government to actually do right when it comes to democracy and democratic principles. But whereas we have realized that we have actually, retarded almost back to where we are coming from, because the agents of the past are the ones that are perpetrating, perpetrating whatever is going on within this regime. So it's just the old playbook that we are actually using. But the whole point now is that how do we safeguard all these, how do we put all the safeguards necessary when in reality you are not in power and you don't have the authority? So whatever you might be doing in trying to make sure that you challenge some of those things is either you are trying to go to court or you are deliberately standing in front of people telling them, no, this cannot happen, and which might be against the law. So that might look like confrontational. But in a sense, no. Even if we feel that the Independent Electoral Commission, Jokoli, should not lead it, why not all the opposition come together to actually organize, a national march past against, the picked person for the leadership at the National, Electoral Commission, whatever that is called. But opposition told we have a fight that needs to be collaboratively and collectively done.
Yes.
No, Ntolube, our ambition is to make sure that we actually get rid of this malgovernance and this self-perpetuation rule that is actually, creeping in our country. So we have a common goal, because I've often told people that Adama's regime had become a collective action problem. But and then at some point, those people don't have the power and, of course, the authority beyond certain points to do anything. So, citizens' resistance is never through violence. It could always be done by multiple, means. Among them could be, what we organize a national march past to condemn some of these activities, and the world would see what is going on. How about all the oppositions coming together to organize a joint press conference to condemn some of the activities that are ongoing? So politics is not all about I don't need to be president if people need to die. I
And
don't want
and
to believe in those things.
and Omar,
Like other people would say, kukili mula buka wala fa moro. Then it be about West Coast lake.
ha,
And we have every right to challenge the leadership at West Coast Radio.
yes.
Ananda kapa mole no masila wala de. Yankuba man karantati. Yankuba man dunia tamanti. Yankuba man dunia long intati. If you tell me other people are deceiving me, on what basis did you make such a statement? When Yankuba was coming, some of us actually, we are there to say, what, this guy is the right person to be here. Sorry, Khadija is picking my phone saying, oh, it's for mommy.
I
Come
know
on, leave it.
Khadija loves to be on the show.
Holy mommy, come on.
Let her be on the show. We love
No,
Khadija.
I'm talking from my mommy's phone, and she's like, "This is for mommy." So she want to take mommy's phone to mommy. This girl is something else. but me mukuwa de wala nyinti ko. Irrespective of the political divide you're coming from, you must face accountability to your constituent. And near kumole for moli mimira ko nye mo barandile. It's our responsibility to say moro amra nyumanke lana tambe kumoti. Bara butung iti agente ko IEC de be nyimina tengi mantra tilongo tonya tamande ka UMC kang ita mantelong ita mante bodula long ite mota yo kila profile o yankuba kila profile na ebente banen na ebente kumande la sula wala ngole be kumosifa be folama. You are not even helping Yankuba, because anytime I see your insults, I'm not seeing your image, I'm seeing Yankuba's image, and Yankuba is not there to see what exactly that is. And then probably you use Dabo's profile, he is not there to see that. And I will not put those things on those people, and I'll not hold them responsible for that, because that is somebody's individual responsibility. Well, another opposition oleko. This is a collective fight, and the fight is not going to be a violent one. There is a way to go about everything. NPP has this strategy of being nice to everybody and trying to get everybody on their side, or pushing money on you and all of that. We might have our individual aspirations here and there, but going into December, Gambia la Sulata, is not our individual interests that matter much. Can we put aside our individual egos? Moro, who among these people could say that they want to be president more than some of? We don't want to be president also? We can go moro ntenite besa wul no ngara ngafo. You know what, that's my uncle ngara na party for mfana ngafo kon mfana lafital. But at the end of the day, that is not what matters. It's about, do we have a system in place that creates a free and an enabling environment for all of us to strive, that our families are not struggling on a daily basis, that every Gambian yaje ko moro tonya ni ntiro ngole be nyimbanko ka momo lafita min na ibe wala sotola na kaitolo ni ayatara ko you follow the right processes and procedures wala mo nyimbanko dingo
Yalo
nyanta sotola nyam ya soto nyam
nimbar no mambe odulado dan anu de ben odulado
ngajelon ne
ane
ngajelon ne tabena wala
nimbar no mambe odula anu de ben odulado I mean number no mo man bo albe la mo kan Ibrahim, are you guys hearing me?
yes
Yes. Go ahead.
So but new build to focus about unity. I mean number nota benno lala, because I have a reason why number nota benno lato. Omar is somebody Mealonko is well respected in this country, and funding Mealonko. A lot of people are looking up to him, and Omar Yalonko B the closest opposition Mealonko without no fantasy. Everybody will believe ko Mealonko he can able to when I say Barrow Bondino Umina Democratic Party lady. And Omar have all opportunities to be in United Democratic Party. And then I know United Democratic Party Alfalu, they have a high regard for Omar. And then because Munakama Avilorun Tonalaka. So Omar, you cannot just UDP Bulanola. I mean, I'm not saying per se UDP don't you understand, but I know you have a spot for UDP, and then well before UMC Mina. So UMC Omar, being banko situation Omar, you know it more than anybody. It halo mo ma ballet Omar because menekada ale harje fenna me alonko ale harje yelondo soto ale harje yahaklo soto bake andung bi itela karamo fanko be warali menka anila advocacy be warali menka me alonko mzavolem environment. Omar, we need the kind of you people to come back to this country kadoko ke karola. You understand? And that is why I'm the current pour come masa kundani da kafaling because kukili lada wala nyuniko ntolle nyim banko mol be nyim banko kambe 40 if hamiyata bake and the senior banda, but they don't have the opportunity to work with this government, or they don't want to come and work with this government because they feel like this government is corrupt. And then one of those people is you. So being better moment because I mean DMC aka Unite Movement, I mean that movement will put a party or little and you put a party or mendo, they knows very well kun more may buy your party or more may buy your party or so as far as more may buy party or when they go and form their own Fonko, or I think the only simple thing that men can all into go, Kajako, Mol Melbo Lanito, Kaul Bundina or Kago, no, Alcanata. First thing, it'll stand in the element rolling into go. More million could be planning to unknown because it'll miracle opposition at the Kafla normal. It'll a miro movement rolling into go. Gambian opposition has to come together well before UMC below. That is always your thinking because you are a person me along. You've already make up your mind. I don't borrow masakunda when you talent. And Gambian call the miro in the element rolling into go. Many masakunda you baffle and yamming. And that was your thought. So in the Omar, if you cannot stop those people from going, from going, you should not join them. You should not join them because, Omar Yalo Imalo, people look up to you and people really.
Are you politicking? Are you politicking or you are making a point? You've got the point now.
They knows what is the truth. And they knows very well it's impossible. Kajako tal bensuro la kafo wole be election or win na. So basically, number no agree with, but one thing also I have to respect ala democratic right. Wole mnyuntu ko ala nyanto. Shit.
Continue. Bayo.
Uncle is gone, man.
But Omar, you see what he is doing. And I think what he is saying is an opinion held by a lot of people. I think the fact that you are associated with United Movement for Change is something that a lot of UDP members cannot reconcile with because it's okay Nyameng and the fact that you hold certain values so principle. Yeah, natural home is UDP. So I don't know what is your response.
Let me say this. I remember, look, I am surrounded by the UDP, and all, let's say all parties, because I came from a very diverse background. Now, in 2021, 2022 or whatever, when the parliamentary election was to be held, I left the country and I was in Belgium, and UDP folks within our community called me, okay, Nangani Londi. That's how close and I was never like a party member or whatever. But the whole point is, okay, so these are people that, of course, Badi Yato, Hadamayato, and look, my relatives predominantly from one side of my family support the UDP. And Hanophobia, most of them support the UDP. And if UDP to an extent, more than political party out of nowhere, you've never seen me do any political activity, to call me from a foreign country to say, return home, we want to make you a candidate for the parliamentary elections because we want a candidate to come from Bruford. That happened with the UDP. So I respect that. And this is a party me, moro people that are key in it. If not to help you grow to get to the next level. And from the beginning, Lamin Sane was my favorite choice to say, you know what, this is this. And up till date, I believe that he should be presidential candidate. But whatever happened between Itola Brikama Area Council and Talib, I think that was unfortunate and very unnecessary. And I felt to an extent, if you look at Yusuf's story, you realize that at one point, maybe, they felt that this person has been favored over another person. That almost the mal la fenkold. But up till date, if this person felt that they got to leave and they got to be on their own and all of that, maybe that is for their greater ambition. And probably they feel they cannot get that within a system that there were a lot of infighting in there. But I still believe that nana maja dunia dulato. Jamaka lafa domo kandami. Moro, these are, you know what, even my political, I don't try to be politically biased. Kavo go, okay, mbe karle support la, wala mte karle support la. Inan nana maja dulato dami yalon ko, jamaka lafa domo UDP is the biggest opposition party in the Gambia. But also, hani atara, domoningol be lafala jamaka and foye wakilindi ye sawarindi, and you give them that confidence, and of course, make sure that there is that trust between all parties. I still believe that no matter what, if a coalition agreement is, UMC is no longer a fraction from the UDP. This is becoming an established political party of its own. So if it is becoming that, either you cannot continually see them as a button told la bala. Okay, kenol, anambaro for you, I don't NPP mambo UDP la bala. That is so. My point is that Sonko kakele. One thing is we will never fight because that is who. But any model mini alonko their family. Inika Sonkala inika kuyaring. But at some point you realize that when somebody is about to attack your family in your collective, you all got to come together and put aside it any wala difference until later that when you achieve that fight against an external force. And that external force in this case and the collective action problem here is the regime. So when he told the Mali Benyola thing, it does not help UMC, it does not help the UDP, it strengthens NPP to continue to fight them. Ibaja lako ni tata ya yanguba mabi, UMC moli ya celebrate. Ni tata ya Talib Masoma, UDP moli ya celebrate. So that is only strengthening the regime to continue to divide and conquer. So until we realize that, what, nyinibe minke kantola nimbiye yanguba ma, nyindolo manyan, ntolbe nyanta lolo mari fele. Even though we know that we have our own issues, when we have our own issues, we go and solve our own issues. But then when it comes to the regime, wala nandabuka mokaja within the opposition. I'm only after the regime. And I still believe that, the difference within the UDP, I was not a part of it. And then the Yankuba Ning, Walning Talib, where when it was happening, I was not there. I was not a member of whatever that was happening. The only person I would talk to about politics back then was Mbari. Because Mbari Ninte, we believe that we can have a conversation. But that does not mean that I need to see, because my belief is that at this stage, all these young people within the UDP, somebody need to be giving the chance to lead, and then to lead in a way that it follow all the time. It requires both a radical approach. It requires both where diplomacy works, we use diplomacy, but we need younger folks who would come with a new dynamism into a political space and not, the old style of, Olua Bunya and Infenkol. But I have a lot of respect for the UDP because I believe that even, where I think I align more, UDP give me the most of respect in society. You go to America, most of the people that you see around now, folks from my close associates or people like Nila Kubekere, Minikanaje, they are predominantly UDP. So that has nothing, your political belief has nothing to do with my interpersonal relationship with folks.
Yeah.
And again, the whole point is that I believe that there needs to be a new leadership going into 2026. That is the difference. Your difference between I and a couple of folks is basically, your choice of leadership. And that I'm not a member of a political party to go and say, no, I'll be Karle Tala. No. Nalma Lamin Saneta, and I believe that I don't see, what will actually get you victory into 2026 that you could not actually sell in 2021 or previous elections. And I know Moro, Afola Mandiadro. Of course, they probably might. The whole point is that Ninga Pabi keep this time around. The next time I might have an opportunity. Each of these people have political ambition. Fondala uncle ndaka ko binay nanda support ninda ba bota jenda fana ke UDP la flag biarati. Yamra bola yangu batawa. I don't think so. But anyway, I respect his position. And one thing about UDP, they don't even tell me come and join us. No, you need to stay neutral. And I think that is really respectable of the keep. I'm not talking about the real people who have value in the party will tell you, okay, but no, you need to just stay neutral. You don't need to take sides. And that sometimes I think reflecting on it makes a lot of sense. But at some point, at this stage of our politics and the regime that is in place,
does it make sense to stay on the fence? Yes.
yeah, that cannot be.
Yeah. Bayo,
You know?
Bayo. Sheriffo, at this point, can Tata Yela Dorong, Dukarangi Manene. Because
Oh.
I think the internet is
Uh,
just is as atrocious. Ntani malmo me kachaning labanele
Yara
and just
nabo abuka hani online dia mo nyanda dala fen abuka drama. You know, he would call me and then we have a lot of argument. Like we can argue for 30-35 minutes. And he
grab.
also has this same point. It's like no, but it man nyanda kafula, here and there. But look, politics is not about what your perception about a certain class of people. Nembe Tonya Fola, all this, what my vision before was that UDP is the biggest political party in the Gambia. Anu hani for being debalare na ko. Domoni wana nabuka for for jamai ko na lafanto lokang. Moro, that doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't make any political, reasoning. It awful hani nyama do funga afo ko more mi for tonyat. But again, where I differ with some people is that nyim funding ke la nyo sabo. Yalonga even dabo e ofuele. Ntolonga nyimpati kabiring 96, we've been working hard to keep this party where it is. Atolo nata, atolo mambula no ntolo no malda mali ya kamben fatolo kalda mali benyo sabo ibenyo saba kamune la moro nyinla nyimburu haha beta nada palaso lom. Palaso kola fenti jede. Momang kuke mola jami yalon kola natambi kulong. Momang tilimbali ya tilim mola jang is all about dominance, position and power within the political establishment. But nin tolo dolo min yalon ko atol mang dunia long in tolta atol mang karan tolta atol mang sembe so don tolte katambi opatito atol mang kuke je mo kote ngol man minke wala mo badi ngol man minke. Why do you think people sit back and then you think that is your entitlement to actually own a position or to say if certain persons are choose I would actually leave or for other people to do some other things mini yalon ko is underground here a shady and here and there. I don't think all of those things were right. But ni tada for saying ali janjan dakai. Momo e hormone mbunya tili nyola do nata ko there is a convergence at any point. Bring those convergence. But if you allow the regime to divide you, and of course, ni nyindo buntanjana, atole was celebrate, nyindo majana, atole was celebrate. That is not helpful.
Ebe live le jani ebe live le ebe people can hear you on. So say WhatsApp le so Omar Jabi no, because if not for that we're gonna wrap up. But yes, please, more baby more can.
Yes, more can
more can live. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so left Kamanka Omar la Dula Jamal Jabi. I kuma Jamal for me alonko I agree with him. Because common government for draw democracy morality momoranding ilamiro momenti or ilata menna. I mean that's all what you always express. But level government for regarding UMC talking about Yankubala Campo, Tarabila Campo, Carla Campo. That is something we have to look at it very well. Ning Atara, Yankuba, for example, you go I ambition soto. But ala ambition I soto, that ambition stay the party. And Mobe Alonko, the time Mobe Alonko Talbu Kabo Party on Kono. Mobe. And at this moment, democracy. We want to have it has to be the choice of the people. More left amendment. There is nobody should blame Yankuba in anything. And I believe Omar being a person in Mealongo is very just. More than Mealongo, more clean Wolem. We have family. Mamera wo Carola. Another campaign from Yankuba. Yankuba man Talib by. Yankuba man Talib by Ibrahim.
But I interview menken on pa modu sort of contributed to fraction owning because of a kumol mimfoje in terms of nin talib continue to manya minate bola pati nyin konole. And I think that's following that comment long talib fananko ko sanka bantale by mbedam into time.
That is young Kubala stand. One thing people need to understand, right? Talib understand for it, but did Talib actually agree with his stand? There is one thing more than the community. Talib understand for it. Talib went to the radio and understand for it, but did Talib understand him fulfill and farmer fulfill? That is what people need to ask ourselves. Because Talib Tata radio tole. Ako, if Nimpatio alay usim tombong, ataba alay usim na normal. Talib in the radio, but did Talib actually fulfill that?
No.
But young men for Talib, member Kekan at that moment. Because member Kekan at that moment, none of them can deny young men for. That was what was happening. Because we know this is going to happen. So we know it's going to happen because look, let me tell you one thing. Politics, yeah, intelligence in politics, intelligence in politics, you lose a lot. Being told many members to take on a particular it's like but because the intelligent tactics in politics, because Gambia political bedamento, you must have an intelligent for intelligence shut up. And that is what people need to understand. So menkera ulo nyinduko, ntolu fanan, me patio kono le melun korosirola, anu membe be kikam patio kono na abe suntel. Wala tinna, I mean, young boy was bold enough to come out, careful what was actually happening. So Yankuba did not actually cause anything here. That was what he believed. And he did not say others. As he said, he himself. But Talib said what he believed and he did not actually do it. So why should people blame Yankuba on his statement, on his own personal stand? That was his personal stand. I mean, if Yankuba left the party, for example, Yankuba party obula, and now we are going to scrutinize Yankuba. What was the Yankuba party obula? That is what we need, because we will scrutinize him. Why did he leave the party? Because if Yankuba said Talib Jiko, for example, I mean, let us be very frank here. Yankuba Talib Jiko, Natara Wolebe Continela. But Niatara, for example, Talib Jiko man continue. And Nadi Yankuba Pasobula. What then Bafala Yankuba will to no, or the Yemen for the Imam Barawala, the party obula because of your personal interest. But Yankuba stay in the party. And Yankuba is still helping the party leader. Every individual can have your own mirror. And Yankuba is a person, Yankuba did not hide. Yankuba is not somebody, he hide his feeling. Yankuba Namina for Moyoko, I am not interested to be a president. And I'm not for Moyoko, I am not interested, and I'm not for Moy. And that is something I am being the Kasongala. And that is something I am being the Agreal. Right?
So Yalo Kachani, maybe Mantel come way back and but we've moved the conversation a little bit forward. I understand you're trying to address some of Malmo and Kachanu, but I think you're missing the crux of the conversation. Because Malmo be min fokanung, wala min the opposition olu, atolu, UDP, and UMC. I'm for UMC, UDP and la UMC kan. In fact, I mean for Mutole, I mean for all of Nindiko, Nyamatol the Malabo because UDP walata. But this is a collective responsibility in terms of by a UMC registration. I think that was the point that he was driving at. It's been stalled by IEC, not based on legitimate reason. It doesn't look like it. Because you love formidability in the UMC as a political movement and when you a concern for all political entities in the Gambia, not only UMC. One and in two, other point is also the new registration ko manyankela UDP and UMC ko da mad and then the collective lady. So Malmo kachani multi. We're not Talib ning Yankuba ko mboto kono, even though he did mention a little bit kafoko Alio handle nyama more like he did say that, but he also abala molten to connect KJ in terms of how people have respected him. So I don't want to Malafi for us to spend too much time on Yankuba.
No, point understand that. Na Omar la diamo la moy bakal andum ala diamo yon kono fale. Ya no fo ya no ala diamo yon kono fale, especially regarding patiola, quoto, patiola simfa nyato, because Omar, I mean, you hate him or like him, and this is all what I keep telling to my people. Omar is somebody whatever is in him. That is what he always said, wherever he is. And that is what actually he expresses. So, I'm just trying to explain clearly, for Molia understand what actually, William Pumula understand, I mean, and the actual cause of some of our podol. I don't know whether you hear me.
We can hear you.
So, but Omar was good. So, but regarding, for example, unity Kony, And regarding
now I'm going to love unity
IEC
da.
UMC
Now I'm going to love fit no da.
Unity, yeah, because sorrow about it. Because the way he keeps going back to Talib, come to Unity
Now I'm
ko
going to
and
love unity la. It come men ko that order the uncle.
No, unity ko coming for, and I always want people to understand this. Nimbi Talib Bensuda na kafu mol nata. Ikon na kafu nyoma. Ito na ko. UDP nata le sign kakafalma. I really welcome that. I have to be very frank to you. And I really welcome that Kajoko. It will let Tata and it will let Nata. Nimome Yalon Tata, Emanta Noma. Amari Musana Fe. No Marinada Musana Amari. You have to welcome that person. And this is something we all have to agree. So maybe folk and unity mountain promote. I want us to be united. I keep saying that I want us to be united. But unity be nyama. Unite has to come to us and we roll together. But come and kapoko unity, UDP la bida kapula unite ma. Or UDP la shona unite la nyatonko ya. That is a no-go area. Wala nante kapoko nung couple session beje now. Unite le me alongo, tol me alongo tata. It will be mirala. How are they coming back to us? And then we roll it together. That is something me alongo is very clear. And again, and there's a point Omar Moy because menu lamero kekan aven down the focus regarding the IEC and Unite tema and other stuff. But let me tell you something. Yaje I mean Adamadimo ebe kukuru nunkono atani hakilo la baki. Political party also nyim banko kanjana comme Omar Yafunyame NPP wuluta nyim banko le kan GDC and other political parties be wuluta nyim banko le kanja and they all went be yela registration also tole anyama. But me not now unite, you understand? And then they will tell you because now you be unite, be balankang answer I may register is because of Unite la Sembo. Unite la Musembe. Unite la Musembe be unite bulu. Me ya long ko you know mo sila la wala. There is no Sembe. The thing is, well in the code. I mean IEC one or two things lem. IEC is just denying them because of maybe NPP or the government doesn't want them to be registered, or because they did not fulfill maybe will fulfill register. But that is something me along I see level. But one thing I believe, every single political party, every single person in this country, you have like a political party or law, and you have a clear record. And you have all the requirement to register a political party as a citizen of this country. You have the right to be registered. You understand? That is something we all need to understand. But actually, I mean, people will say, you remember Unite, we should be in solidarity with them. I mean, but why should we be in solidarity with a particular movement? They are not actually yet a movement. They are fighting with a very well-structured political party. That is the problem of Unite. Unite the problem of morality. That is why, for you to see some certain people, for them to come out and stand Kajoko Unite, so that they can actually get registered. Understand? Because you are fighting with people. Many alongo, aleta kola, wole atol marko, wole stand atol, wole make sure for be atol do lunta in political corner. Now, if you want to form a political party, it's very simple. I agree with him. Every individual, Momo don't think is a function political party or no. Everyone, Momo is a function political party or no. But ni bele function political party or lora. Iboda damendo. Hey, it's a haklo murundi jeko. Moda damendo. But it about damendo to quote the way tinala. But we have to be very frank to each other. You understand it? And I am telling you, Ibrahim, one thing I want to make very clear to you. For example, Unite, I believe one thing very clearly. Be attack role along could be uniting UDP team because one thing is clear, and I always repeat this: every individual person in this country have right to form his own political party at any time he or she wants it.
But Bayo,
that is something else we have to make it very clear.
Bayo, should it matter whether you have a political rift with another opposition party for you to stand on what is legally a constitutional right, for you to stand by a party who has every right to get to register, especially if you can see they have been they've been intentionally disadvantaged by virtue of IEC bela quota man kanyame pati mi yalan ko register ta kabring at or he's been attempting to register kabring late last year. And dolma long publicly IEC man fintinan ka clarify minen nula problem odi minatna is going to take this long. So everything that we hear currently is basically speculation. But it from your vantage position, it coming for thing should it not be a question of considering opposition party that will be la for cooking on la wolom kanyim man sakunda boni pura la nyo kang to make sure that even though man you like, because I suspect that's going to be the position of Honorable Alaji Usino Dabani ninka about following the ko IEC nyanda lua tamandlale across the board selectively ka party do deny wala ka movement do deny registration or because of why Usino Dabo ya alone neko at the end of the day the ultimate goal is the same. And when it comes to politics, that matter. But kafoko because when you deny ka natul dolbe findi kan kola fonko ning delay ning ka ko celebrate, I don't think it's very welcoming.
But Ibrahim, who is celebrating it? I think Iman Lamoy.
No, Mafu tell about celebrate kan specifically. I'm making the point that ila position of kafoko that because your UDP like enemy, so it wouldn't make sense for UDP to stand in solidarity with them. What I'm saying is that you don't think it is logical.
It does not make sense. A person who is fighting you, let us be very frank here. A person who is fighting, Tutunel, to see you go, let us be frank to each other here, right? Because it can mean politics is like that. Right? And that person is struggling very hard about politics is different with other things. And this is one thing we all need to understand here. We have to be frank to each other in this aspect. When we go by law of the land, every individual, every citizen of this country have right to register a political party. If he or she, fulfill all the rules, all the demands, now fulfill. You have to make sure the person got registered. That is the law of the land. Nobody should deny anybody, Kavoko, you are not going to register a political party. And I really say that is something I believe. But Malong, what is the reason why IEC did not register them? Whether they did not fulfill the entire requirements, whether IEC, there are other reasons. I did not hear from IEC now, and I cannot comment of it. But one thing is very clear: every individual in this country, if you have all the mandate and everything, you should be able to register. And I believe that is the very reason why UMC they submitted their registration. So now let them work very hard to make sure they got registered because they have the right to get registered. You understand? But one thing is very clear here: a political party has been here for 30 years. And no political party national political party every day political party we all have to understand that one. When it comes in terms of truth, the and then we move on. That is what I have to say about this, Ibrahim.
Omar, I'm sure you want to react, Omar, so go ahead. Hopefully we can have it.
I try by all means, and I'll try to make sure until Malum for dunia korende, but I will not be one person who will say something that I feel would be derailing to the opposition and mostly to the UDP. Mo kendo lebeje, mo kende patilom, ngalo na kwe katakuja mala ke nyimbanko kan kakafalwa sambana. Of course, 30 years, I believe it's a moment to actually reflect on probably getting a leadership that probably would win elections and of course form a government that will bring about proper rule of law, democracy, term limits, and so on and so forth. The latter limiting of course or trying to reduce the opposition conversations to UDP versus UMC instead of focusing on the regime that is hell bent on self-perpetuation. I try not to actually take that path. Of course, there are people who were in the UMC who left, who were in the UDP and left and probably formed the UMC. But the UMC is not entirely folks who left the UDP. The establishment has gone beyond, and probably many Jamabi saying, well, most of them were not members of the UDP. Probably the founders, or the key members of the the movement were from the UDP. That is understandable. But it got to a point that most of the people that are aligning to their ideas and ideology are not predominantly or entirely people from the UDP. So, but yeah, long, you cannot constantly think that karin yol botan tolle bala wodo tolle nyanta murunana moro ika jale aka kolea mol fa malay comme yekke baya demanding iko ibe musinyin la ibe muru ibe mufla ila own compound to like in our typical society it didn't merento because even parents don't want you to leave. I understand that feeling, and I don't really try to actually go against here and there. But UDP as a party, the biggest opposition party, I believe that is a government in waiting. In its actions and doing, both executive and party supporters should actually be advocating for the rule of law and respect for, right processes and procedures. And of course, making sure that they are advocating for even your enemy when they are right, let the right things be done. And I think that is what now Uncle Nyolnimo Kotongol should do. And I don't think he's doing anything contrary. But we also saw other people trying to say, "Karanyola Fantola Tela Barambejela Janamoro." Even if you don't like Malmo and it's your truth, I will give you your truth. But I need more than moro. Konga for dole nyami. Moro nienta bana ngani munyama tolti. Mnyabe malala nimpare dambenga na kendea. I'm not that person that actually says, you know what, ignore. That didn't merento ngai fulango be and ignore for. I don't do that. But that is simply to tell you that nite mode we will actually fix that. But of course, whatever that is our collective interest, we need to safeguard that because mimbena kela nimbi ya tili nyindola. Tomorrow you can become the victim of the same thing, and then at the end of the day, there is that divide and rule. Now UMC is an establishment of its own. It is no longer, as other people will see it, a fragmented portion of the UDP. No, this is becoming a formidable force of its own. It's left to him to acknowledge either they are formidable or not. Homo choice let.
But yeah. I give them their truth.
Nsonta walale, nsonta walale mbaring. No. Nsonta walale. Baranda kami mfo mbaring. Inyanda dami njela wala nyintuko.
Malmo with Yamokan.
Mbaring ini nyinla differences. Nsonta walale. Baranda ka dami mfo. No matter the differences that you people think you have against this regime, there is that need to understand that but we have a common denominator here and we have a common agenda here in one way or another. You want to form a government. UMC want to form a government. Which government do you want to form? The government of the Gambia. Which government does UMC want to form? The government of the Gambia. So the common denominator here is the Gambia. So now kunduta mantafu atoliye mansakunda muna nalafa adama bondilaji because you don't believe in this regime. You don't believe in this style of governance. You don't believe that there is, of course, respect for the rule of law. There is, functional democracy. We all believe that there is what is about to happen on self-perpetuation. So all of these things are convergence points that we all have together. So on that sila janko, UDP mambetea, wala karanyol mambetea, wala karanyol ketetene. Oba galante daji kanta yala fangode because knowing fully well that, what, either karanyol fraction tajana, wala bara lunso total nunson taloko tilingon into nyabeja. And one of be, my whole belief was that among these young people, ning ayatara ko yankoba lota jang, talib lota jang, lamin sana lota jang, mokore lota jang, iko nyum fonding kele kiline benyaton kaya kela wolokon. What is the problem? What would be the problem? One can be like Minister of Finance, one can be probably Chief Justice, does that not form a UDP government? They could have actually managed this issue. Even Adam Barrow's crisis could have been managed. Politico, amanke you saw the politico is always a mind game. And this is what I always tell my uncle. There are people who can be very sentimental and emotional about politics, but politics is not a game of emotions. It's about the mindset. Politics is like a chess game. And do you also understand that in a different light of analysis, if you look at UMC registration should interest even the United Democratic Party. But I don't want to go to that. I believe in the fact that Momoya ni my father in your party register no most of UMC ko la kaito lamansi. Onyong kuma tilimbal lebe kering. So the whole point is that my focus would now look at some people. No more ya momi ya longo hani mo fon tang tawol mo tang fon tawol ko ma.
What you need to understand here is and that is something me I'm going to be in the kasongwala. I mean, Omar can you idea before this idea Omar is said, but Jumanle idea you boycott, and this is where Leto Omari Afaranjibe. I mean, this idea of Yankubabe Landia Lojana, Caribbean Lojana, Lamishana Lojana, that was the intention of the party. You understand? That was why Talib was given a position, right? I mean, he was the organizing secretary of the party, right? And that was why, London was given a position, and that was the very reason why Yankuba was given a position, likewise Roy and others. But the thing is here, it's Talib who left the party, you understand? And then I understand what Omar is saying. Yes, there are people, they were never in the United Democratic Party, and today, they are in the movement. That is something, I have to acknowledge that. And because, and I can say that number also is not just even a minor number. And I know that is something, Omar there are a lot of people, Mantra UDP, and some of them, they were never even NPP, but some of them were APRC before, or some of them were from other political parties, and they all come together. But one thing I just want Omar to understand, if you see all those people, they joined UMC is because it was formed. That's why they joined there. You understand? And because they are constitutional right. But what I am saying is, unity mean for Jangola Nyintoko. If Talib stay in the party, for example, there are people who are with Talib today. If Talib remains in the party, those people will also vote for the party. If Talib, Talib advocacy go and likewise, Yankuba can also able to attract people because there are people they love his way of politics, you understand, and those people also will actually vote for the party. And likewise, there are people will actually vote for the party. And those people also will vote for the party. Likewise, landing Sane. So the plan was, particularly everybody focus go. For example, the party we're all going to follow that very passive. But remember, at the end of it, what actually happened, Talibia Safele, you understand? And Janaka Safe, I meant for Bayo. So unity coining, until we are ever ready, Kajako unity is sort of andum, that unity coining, we will be following that one, Kajako unity is sort of. So, but one of Omar Nyoloko, Nimbe addressing Kela, you understand? And I understand Omar is there, and Afanasa Kato Keno Kajako, we all come together because I remember for them, I believe it's very clear, only into Ning Kafo Yanda Kela Nyoma, Yanda Kapo United Democratic Party. That is something me alonko, understand, you understand, but it's never my stand coming Kabuko IEC or whichever institution may along they should be able to deny somebody Kabuko the cut. So I think we can move away from that. The next thing level for all you to go is about Yankuba Diamo. Yankuba Diamo, not only Mojamal, Modulie Koyin Tanyamen, and the way Dolu left a Koyin ka misinterpret Nyame. If Yankuba Diamo is very, very clear. Modo Safoko, Barifo, Nindo Yatinya, Fananya Katinyala. No, Yankuba Kuma Fendi Yeme along Katinata. Understand? Tinyarla Tinyarokele, Memu de Masabalti, Ola Tinyaroke. And the Masabal for Mole.
No, the Tinyaro, no, but Yankuba for Nasake, no. Can I for the Masabal?
No, Yankuba Tinyarke. Dalon, Brahma. Ni Eleftasai. He left a full comment na your farm yes, because I was listening to you at that point. If a Yankubala video Samalanang, or Yankubala Diamoni ya play Be Lamoyani Hakilola. Be Lamoyani Hakilola and Kana Lamoy because of I like Yankuba Dabo, Kana Lamoy because of I hate Yankuba Dabo.
But more on Bela Lamoy. Bela Lamoy.
But I give him Yalan Kumo Kalamoyle. Nia Lamoy or Lai Small Lai, Ilafta.
But let me give an example. You are part of UDP. You are a member of Brikama Area Council. We are public commentators. And Omar is a different person. So everybody, we don't have the ability to look at things exactly the same. So that is why it becomes important. It is measured, it is responsible. So Mafoko is not basically to say that Yankuba Memfo. Let me just finish. It's not to say Yankuba Memfo is wrong. It's to say that.
But I don't know what. So sometimes I don't know what was not measured in Yankuba's speech. To you, what was?
Okay, I can tell you. Okay. Yankuba has a record of being out of character when it comes to public statements. Let me just finish. Let me finish.
We are not talking about Ibrahima. Our discussion is about Yankubala Kumakawa in Tanje. Let's talk about that.
Yes, Mambala.
I don't think we have to go back. Let's talk about what.
But you want to go back to Talib. You don't want to go back to Yankuba. And you ask me a question. So how does that even work?
No.
Arango, sign now, Yankuba.
Ibrahim, this is why I always say to you, I mean, I don't want to say this again.
No, from the UMC. You can just go ahead.
Why are you bringing this Talib issue here? Because you asked me, we are talking about the particular subject discourse camp. And that particular subject member discourse camp, that is what I asked you. Yankubala kumakawa yunkono. Yes, and I kumakawa memfo. Just tell me, what was not measured there in that statement in Tangi. I think that is what we have to discuss about, Ibrahim, if you want to be just to this discussion. I mean, I think it's very important, when we are doing the discussion on the justice, you understand? And justice with them will need to go. There, I stand with I firmly stand with every single word for if I am going to give such statement, even I am what kind of a leader, right? That is going to be my statement because I know the situation on the ground. That is the only statement me alongo it can actually able to hold the situation on the ground, and that is the only language me alongo. I believe the Baro Masakunda at this moment they will hear. And then I'm glad that Omar actually, taking stand. Kajoko, Yankubala Kumakawa, although, he said, what his law for whoever, you understand, but he actually stands with Yankubala Kumakawa, but not actually all for him. But indeed, I stand with every single word of Yankuba. Why I say I stand with every single word of Yankuba? Well, I mean the code. The Masabali Afajan. Ako. Yellow ako, I just told him Baro left a yellow bomb, I sabbed in Banco Bakela. I just told a yellow bomb Baroy. The Masabali of Banco Kanjan. Yankuba Memphis is very, very clear. I am following in the code, right? I don't know about Niatara. Ye Memphis, the Masabali Memphis, it will answer, that is what they want. Let's listen to this word very well. Samuel, and Pukan Banco Bondi, Kagambia Bondi. Niatara, Jarate told you, Kagambia Bondi. This is something you have to listen very well. Now, Jarate told you, Pruka Gambia Bondi, Pruka Mofa. I Jarate Panayel, Natara, more than the far, Pruka Gambia Bondi, I Jarate, Atafo D. That is him.
I don't think you are getting. I don't think you are getting the point. Ntamambalang demba sabale for Omar den nkaiko. Demba sabale ning aning Yankuba Dabo, including Adam Baruanala and people called Molmin Kadiamo Nyama. They should be publicly cautioned. And now, if you can see, all the people that are admonishing Yankuba's statement, it's not because they hate Yankuba. It's not about that. Or it's not because they are UMC sympathizers. No. Because they're looking at the fragile nature of, and we have to talk about that song. Or everybody that tried to hold Yankuba Kumumemfo is a Yankuba hater or is a UMC sympathizer. That just doesn't make sense. It's not going to fly very long. Alba Fahamla Ko. Listen, let me just finish. Alba Fahamla Fananko. We have a history. For 22 years, dictator also na Bangkokang. Gambia fenti jamon minke molla. Regardless of how you look at it, compared to Jambela time when you make it be someone in Bangkok. Right?
But Ibrahim, let me say this. Yalo often get no nyami wala nyinte kopi.
Let me finish my point. My point actually is that I think as leaders, all of us owe each other a duty to be measured in our utterance. It's not everybody that has to be a dimba malanyoka. Ning demba sabaliko karibile mole fala. If it takes us to kill for Barrow, that's what we are going to do for him to stay in power. They definitely whatever it takes, we are going to. People don't have to die. It doesn't have to be killing. It doesn't have to be a sacrificial lamb for us to move the country. There are avenues of diplomacy. There are avenues of conversation. That is what I'm saying. And if that doesn't make sense to you, you think that I'm a Yankuba Dabo hater, that's fine. You can run with that story. Because I know I'm not. I certainly am not. I have absolutely no reason to hate Yankuba or anybody in UDP or UMC. But the point has to be made that
I did not say you hate Yankuba, and I think that point we need to make very clear. I did not say you hate Yankuba. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to tell you the fact. You understand? Young Kubala's statement, I'm trying to make it very clear to you. I agree with every single word of Yankuba in that statement. You understand? And then, like everybody have your own way of understanding. But
yes.
I'm trying to tell people, Momo, Ibrahim, Yankuba, I want you to repeat what Yankuba has said, and then where do you think it's wrong? I want you to repeat it for me. Where do you think it's wrong?
We had.
I mean,
it seems
because if you have to come to the media and try to say Nyembenkara is wrong, you should be able to tell us why.
I have the video. I can play the video for you if you want. Come on.
Yeah, play it. Yes, play it. I just maybe if you want to play it, you play it, we listen to it. Because there is a situation we met on the ground. And the situation we met on the ground, government want to use power. Government left like a symbol use. And this is what we need to understand.
So Nimman Sakunda Lafa Sembo use la. Nintolube, the reason for I'll give you an example. And Omar believe in America Jana. Me and Banko Kolea, we are not one of the reasons it's so difficult is because ikadum bidigo konol the rekidota. You know, anybody can just go ahead and buy a gun, and we know how dang every day yala model like is crazy, right? And I'm making that to draw an inference carton ko. Ninde masabali will be an irresponsibility la. Some of us have to be a little sane. You know, ko Cairo. And if you don't see that, then I don't know what you're seeing. Cairo.
Let me.
Mansakunda say guilty no for being the perpetrators of violence, but opposition also they have a responsibility.
Let me just bring you.
I understand the opposition have the responsibility, right? But one thing is very clear here. All of us, remember, advocate, we want to have a free and fair election.
And Cairo, yes, peace.
So that's what we want to have a free and fair election, and to have a free and fair election now, and then you have to start it from now. Imagine, Ibrahim. The registration of the cake, and it's from the registration more left like a win about commerce like a registration to line. It any more benyola, it any many the benda carrier by line. Where the Kundala Mansakunda, Sembo Bentelebulu, left a Menkelambe Olakala, and do along what exactly is doing at Luatinyala. But yet still because he believes that the police are under him. He is the one who appointed the IEC chairman. You understand? He is the one. I mean, and again. It had been a citizen of this country, ye moje. May I long I lualetinya. Ye evidence so mutabulu. Ye evidence so the police ola. Afomari fintita. Asonta. Kajeko, yes. Tonalo. So, but yes, still, you report the murder of the police, but they still want the same system to continue. And you came and tell them because this system cannot continue. And they are trying to tell you, in fact, this person is going to be here, but you are not going to be here. Imagine. You who have not committed any crime, they are telling you, somebody is going to be in a place. Mayalongo is very sensitive. Mayalongo is already an alleged fraudulent. You know, it's going to be in that place. Have all right to be in that place. Am I right to the price and blind? But it Mayalongo, you commit no crime with whatever and with an authority. In fact, it can't no jam because but Mayalongo is already an alleged criminal. And you know very well that process is what is going to lead you to the election. That process is what is going to lead you to the election. So what those people, what are they telling you?
I think baby kumakino fokang mandara nyomo ekandamento all am nyindiko nde sontale ko albe minkakang is so important. And I think that's why Omar and I also, we all agree on the same thing is at the end of the day to have a free and fair election kumat and atolbe do ko kumata bakel we cannot overstate it several times. The only place of na divergence movement the all am nyindiko thing I feel we need to tune it down. Both the government and also opposition. That's the only point.
Let me just come in here. Yeah, long.
You want us to tune it down. Mm-hmm. You want us to tune it down and left it with the government to do whatever they want to do. Is that what you are saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Let me just say something.
Do you know what happened in Latvia? Ibrahim. Do you know what happened in Latria?
Yes, I've seen the work that you guys are doing, including in Tangier, and I think it's important work, and I encourage all of you to keep it up. And I've had conversations with Waka Siddiq here. We talk in detail about some of those things that happened in Tangier, and that's not the point.
No, but I am talking to you about what happened in Latria yesterday. Do you know what happened?
I saw the post. I saw the post from Siddiq. I saw it. I saw the post and the reporting.
Okay, so this is Mayor Lonko, Yamira, a situation like that. Anybody can tune that down. A situation like that now, where you are already doing an act. In fact, there are some of them even run. There are fugitives in my world muta follow. They run. They met a police officer on the ground. A police officer on the ground, because every IEC station they have a police officer. This person came on the ground. They detected that because these people, they are not even Gambians, right? The moment they realized that, the registration officers detected the Kaita Media, they run. And another person will not right? So they have to use intelligence on her for how long, because it doesn't know. So what do you do when she was rejected at the second, right? And then you make sure that you focus. Yes, put you so be able to can able to go and either aliamu to aliasam and police sola. Alio Fero Beke, already police sola already. Police sola amuta. Must know for convest the quarter make a Gambian doing it. I came up with Kaito India, I came up with her to Yala, Kaito in Yili. A guy go Kaito in Yili, I could Tita Dole Kaito in the die. I could Tita make Kaito in the die. So we're trying to know that in a moment, if Mr. Station of Seeding Jay na, Seeding Jay of all, way nana. Where do one station on Yunkono? I understand. I am the Galia. So Galia Bang, they don't even want to book emotion case for book in their police diary book. Then they are telling the people who came to report it, you could prove Wole station on Yumbula. Imagine you came to the police station, you reported a matter. You are the person who reported it. They went and arrested the person. You police station on you. All of you guys give your statement. Now, Sidinjay and Okola, you can go later. You understand? Sidinjay Bolivia, Ako police, Ako Musonina Badi Oleko, Atuleta Dron, a can you labor new Borjandron, Ebenumbula, Kutakela Yukoko. For your way. You went to the police officers, Biden saying, you people want us to leave this place. Now, all what we need from you, we want you people to give you the case, the diary number of the case. Just give us the diary number of the case until we are leaving, so that we can follow up the case. The police refuse. Because they are not going to give us the diary number. They refuse. And I am telling you, do you know what? Immediately until we left that place, you understand that those people, they have to release that person to go home. And that is what is happening in this country, Ibrahim. Yandra, we have to just tune it down.
Okay, Omar, so yeah. Listen, into that position, I understand where you're coming from, and it's important, and I want to make sure that I realize, I acknowledge what you're saying. I think Akumada Bakele, well, all of us to have conversations about this, and we can always disagree. But I get your point. But into that position, it remains unchanged. Is we are a lawful society. The government violates the law. Opposition parties also cannot behave like the government. I think we owe each other a duty. We have to do better because I still have trauma from Jammeh era. I hope that we're never in a society where we're, because of the dangers of election, we plunge our country into some madness. Miyalonko will never recover from, or it's going to take so long a time. Miyalonko. But Omar, we can wrap up, please, and then last word this Sonko fanana. It's already almost 2 hours, Jang. Dino kumbola santonga tango fanjiwe.
So Ndalafta, there are a couple of things that I want to bring to speed. And then through reflective thinking, that would actually tell you some of the things that this regime does. And at that point, I would want to agree with you to an extent. Yajele kabiring polisole UDP nkolo bute during that Yankuba Dabola court case nyento. Now, Kabiri ye okela ndo kela, including my uncle and Sabali Nyolnimo Kotangol, they made wild pronouncements. And do you know that those wild pronouncements had big bearings in the killing of the cops and of course the subsequent script that was narrated to us? E tolla wo kuma kaŋolu kono e koye be jola pate jallo le to pate jallo do tata fa mansakunda murunta e ko mari be do ko la Brikama Area Council la be do ko la UDP mola mati but niaje yo be fo e be sujirin no munna wolom kuma kaŋolu ti sabale nyol ni na onkul nyol ni mo kote ngol yamin fo. That is why sometimes the statements you make could actually be used by other people to do certain acts and then try to frame you. So Yankuba Minfo, to an extent, I would see that it's a lot of injustice that is happening, but it's a chess game, like I said, politics is. Nite come further for it okuma can see follow for. Imagine if the regime again turns around and go and actually kill an IEC officer from Tanje. Who will be their first suspect?
Yankuba.
So reflective thinking will tell you more on ninyi ne bota minkono. So kate Yankuba fon ninyi ne bota minkono. Of course, when you speak, and then if you speak in a way, those people believe in everything you say. And they might be tempted to act in the way you actually speak, which might not be what the country needs. I would agree to that. But again, look at the regime we are dealing with. Nico Yaya Lakuo is traumatizing to you. Yaya's biggest agent or catalyst to all of that is Sidin Jai. He is the biggest enabler of Adama Barrow today. He is literally running all police stations in this country. He's literally masterminding all the injustice, criminality, and banditry in this country. So ni moli ye moli muta fraudulent activities la andu itolbe jikirinko police wala nyanta tilongo ni tonya tamandi lan tol ni wala betema ya tara ko police kunda mo molle to min yalon ko wala mo NPP police wala sa wala tilongo tonya tamandi lan no nyadi.
Omar failed to understand in that aspect. Yankuba I mean, ye men for all of you to go. Yankuba la diamo info yala mo bake with an open minded because Yankuba men for is very clear. Konatara abejarla. And this is what you need to understand. And no other bekelefana ate he himself. Ako din sawale bembulu. And this is one thing you need to understand. Ako din sawale bembulu. And you understand, I will be ready to give my life to be the sacrificing lamb. It's not saying for anybody to go and kill somebody. And Yankuba, whenever he's speaking, and one thing we all need to understand, he is very conscious about the law. You understand? So when he is speaking, he always calculate what he is saying. I don't do much like what you guys said. But
Sonko, mbele after Yankuba, but I think let's just be. No, but instead of but we can also accept. Ebadu malmoya labandorong. Let's not gaslight here.
But
everybody did not say that, and this is what.
But how long? If you are sacrificing yourself, you don't.
The point about legal consequences because they didn't understand what they actually said. This is what I want you to know. There is no legal consequence in what Yankuba have said. It was very consequential.
I never.
And then what every single word it says there, you understand? Our words me along is timely for one to say that because Barrow Masakunda, that is the trade. That is what actually Barrow Masakunda.
Uncle, now listen.
Let me tell you something. BFL UMC, Ibekumbola, for example. Register. It's because some of the people in their team they believe it's injustice. But if injustice is happening and you remain silent, you understand that? At that moment, what is going to happen? So
but fighting
injustice is resistance.
But listen,
resistance doesn't have a limit.
Let me also help you. Fighting
have a limit. You have to resist until you know that go.
Okay, good luck.
Against tyranny is resistance.
Okay, good luck. Resistance comes in different forms. So
Yalong. I come in for whatever they say
Omar,
is within the
confines back and forth. Omar, everybody janiba continue. Ninkom bita Sonko be continue for janin soma. So please,
let me just
address it.
I don't. I just the whole point is that main farm be caring wala nyintiko. this is a regime that would capitalize on it mean for your bara kula min yalon kanin tilongon into nyamanta, and it does not necessarily mean that it kumala for mimula na tambe kumati. But of course they have a reasonable, reasonable chance within your statements to go and do dubious and try to frame you, and we have seen that in matters relating to the killing of the cops. So whatever one would say, you definitely need to be conscious of those things. I'm not saying what Yankuba said is, above the moon or whatever. Until I believe that this regime is actually hell bent on lies, deceit, and manipulation, and they will do it using all the instruments at their, disposal. That includes the police force. Kato, police will enter land all out. At this stage of my life, I don't think I will go and report anything political to the Gambia police force after seeing what happened in the killing of the cops and the framing. All of those things are political. So that is already a political institution that is probably out there to benefit the NPP and its talks like, Sidinjai. Yeah, Alaman Sakunda, we are traumatized by that. The biggest perpetrators of some of the things that were happening is the same Sidinjai. The will of the Gambian people will not be respected. Why do you think that person will respect anything that has to do with the will of the Gambian people today? That is a person who will make sure, irrespective of whatever, no respect to the laws or whatever, will do anything and everything to keep, this government in place. So, like I said, there are instances where diplomacy would work, and there are instances that other methodologies would work. But the way other methodologies would work, I would really think that the opposition need to come together to continue to press the government to make sure they do the right things, because they are not doing the right thing at the moment. And then, and that will not actually, give you the desired results. So we need to put aside our egos and all this anger against each other to understand that the problem is beyond UDPs, beyond UMCs, beyond PDOIs or whatever. It's a collective problem that we need to address collectively. And I will never look at, somebody within the opposition with an emotional, viewpoint. I will make sure that I'm rational enough to think with you, irrespective of what you believe in and irrespective of our differences. But the common denominator here becomes that we are faced with a challenge that is a self-perpetuation rule that is held bent, built on anything and everything just to retain power. And that includes utilizing the police force, utilizing the electoral commission, utilizing every force that is available to them. So in total same community, the same movement is to come together and, of course, to speak in unison against all this negativity that is actually being meted on, different political actors within the country. But whereas we are divided, that only strengthens the government. And under no circumstances, menala jankonga opposition ole jala intela political what. And more dole ni wala bakela fanana haji te. And I will not hold them to say that what they are doing is wrong. But one thing that I know is there is no monocropping to actually get a solution to this. And we cannot all act Father Christmas thinking that, oh yeah, the new nice nasal. Africa no more wolong. Eka momin jeka horoma ya bunya, eka kuwa base ngala. Waka amirete munyama atol din. Tola society be wala nyama. But ni efon kabulu nyama ato da kavalo ko biwa kala warante tambule orongan dandula long. So there are moments that some of those things are needed, but there are moments that if we mirela kore wala fana na moka tra ku kemi yalong ko sama sining ibinete jalai lala. But where I want to conclude this conversation on is that this UMC, UDP, Yankuba Dabo issue is clouding our conversation in politics to the point that we are forgetting the bigger problem, which is the regime. Now, Sirinjai and everything that they are doing is because we are not giving them the attention to discuss matters that they are doing. Because in Tolida Mali are thinking that Munad Nalbotan Tolka Munad Naikamako, Mefadi Yalanda Malotema, one tem politico. Politico Belarin Dami, Walla Nyintiko. There is a regime that refused to give us all the reforms needed. Molle fara nyimbanko ka hane fobi wala man tilingo ninto nya soro no nyimman sakunda koropur ngona na masoro kabere nyimbanko baya wulu. Now all of these things in their totality, we've seen the killing of the cops, we've seen the killing of 3 folks in Faraba Bantang, we've actually seen the rampant corruption in the system. We have seen people not safe in their houses, not safe in the streets, not safe even at their workplaces. Moro, what do we think about all of these things in their totality? Then ntoloda malo kombe dunka nyola kulami yalonko, they're insignificant, they're irrelevant. And whereas Gambian all are going to bed without food, Gambian all are actually waking up without food, Gambian all are actually going to hospitals without proper medication. 70 children of this country died because of government negligence and, of course, corruption. Fontolo buka mira wolo bela ba. nte konte ni Ibrahima la mambe ni Ibrahima mambe munala atara tilimbali ya mimbe nyimbanko kan Allah na tambitale. Instead of us to see beyond our individual aspirations and egos than to look at the collective problem that all of us are facing and solve them, we are continuing to fight each other unnecessarily.
But
But to
Mamo
conclude,
almost done. I'm gonna chance
to
the for the
conclude,
last
Joe
statement.
Gomez, Joe, I don't Joe Joseph Colley, amanke motilin dinti, ata tilingo tamani la na election auto, and no molo mi along ko to live banko na full lo tamin data 4 million kemesa banim feng, ka kela private account lo kono, nimma sakunda be sirin wakang, nimma sakunda sifa kaminke buke by do kola de ka fa ko ba wela ela corruption scandal be mbul, lafta min neba bara la wala de. So nimmanke moti mi along ko even at his own will, if he want to do justice, he cannot do it because of course there is a dossier waiting for him. So what Omar inte be jikirina ko mansakunda yo muta kankuro lato so ni mingo min faya be bara la wala nyinta kela mote min be tilingo nin to nyata mani dan tolla election od e be min ke ka UMC la is a strategic plan of the the regime to delay them until towards election period, which I think is not right, should be condemned by all existing political parties in the Gambia, all civil society organizations, all religious denominations and political actors of our country, because some things like this nyinle kamolo kam fund for a futa level odo mi yalon ko ala na tambit, and then you want to solve it when it is already going to turn violent, because nobody will accept people to continuously and of course deliberately inflict pain on them or try to deny them their birthright or to try to deny them things that me yalon control ni to be denta walla. Nobody, irrespective of your political denomination or what you think you are, what you believe in, have any right to deprive anybody who have the legitimate right to form a political party that, oh no, we are delaying them for no reason and trying to say, oh, we don't have enough staff. You cannot blame it on staff. You cannot blame it on resources. You cannot blame it on anything, because it is their God-given right that must be respected by all and sundry. So I think that UMC cannot play that, Father Christmas game of being law-abiding. When the regime fails to abide by the law, we actually make sure that luwa bambele ja mota sonna luwanta yala ja woto Joseph Koli min nyanta ma wala to nyani tilimo tamandi abe tilimbali alla be kuri alla no ngamenol to sonna wala, and then we will resist. That is just the
Thank
point.
you.
Irrespective of either you are UMC or not, you should make sure that constitutionality maintains in this country, that nobody actually runs that self-perpetuation rule of illegal activities. Ni aje yaya ye kutunna. Kabira ba damu taka molu be katuderi nemba foka nga luwa bunya kan killing, he became an eagle and then picking any chick that he feels comfortable, to do so at any time, because no other person will say anything. But when we collectively fight injustice, it is not for any person we are doing it for, it's for our collective good. So that's basically where I want to end it. But UDP, UMC, I love all these political actors. They have no ill feeling against anybody, including whoever thinks whatever you want to say. But at the end of the day, I have my own opinion and of course choice of candidates and persons depending on what I think works for me. I respect the
Thank
fact
you.
that
Thank
people
you.
would have those differences, but abutung ay ka horomo nimbunya kono lan, where there is a convergence, let's agree, and where we have our divergence, let's argue them, but respectfully, and of course, without being so condescending and castigating people. But kukilindang wolonde, you come online, yela Facebook, yela ko bawo internet wala be buli kan tala baneng wala ben kuma de la si to si fabela moro bot ibota nandami mbota na wolto. That is just the point.
Yeah.
Respect is reciprocal, and of course, political commentaries should be built on trying to get people on your side and not to be condescending and disrespectful to people without any base. Not even Talib or any other person will stop some of us when you insult us, because that becomes us and that becomes our responsibility. But we respect leaderships that actually act in accordance with the law, but also they denounce vehemently, anything that is contrary to the laws. So baraka bake moro.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Omar. On that point, or on that note, rather, Sonko, briefly, please, I'll let you also have an opportunity to share some last statements in terms of all the things that we talked about, and also, I cannot emphasize enough how much I appreciate you always being available. Omar Be even though we, always disagree on issues, but I think the audience would agree with me. It's always enjoyable. But yes, Sonko, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibrahima. And then I know BK na program yun dun you normally yung buka kaya na mama nakana Facebook live take na bungko na dyan. But today I don't know what's the problem. I try to use almost Lionel Baker, choose official Comium, and even the wireless phone, I connect everything, but unfortunately today I'm better, but I'm always happy to be in the same platform with Barandeo. Like I said, Barandeo Mole Me Alonko. I mean, everybody like him, and I remember for all of, I mean, like I said, already he has made up his mind. I mean, he's going to be with UMC, but one thing I know, Omar will not be part of anybody. Me alongo, I mean, abe alfal na or I mean, abe kumaja ufaila karikang. I don't think it will ever be in that. If somebody me alongo ala political, and I believe abe kera more of agenda, more of his plans for the country. I know he's going to mainly concentrate on that. And then I advise you, my friend, it's not among better comment what the new attack but one thing we all need to understand is you cannot be sitting there, eating the Kong, and you I try to be very nice to you, but you try to be hard on me. And then let me tell you something. That is the problem with some of these some of our folks, and then that is not something Omar Malmo Sambou. We in the Democratic Party Tolu so if another people also comes, if I left a I think the best thing all of us at the end of the day understand in what is the water me along I get a kafunyoma avisionara. El Bandimanyo Bunya Manyo Roma at the end of it, what may along the Kaplanyoma Wato Megas and Mapa the Sonera, but as a colleague. So the Puruka Nyola opinion sold respect to and try to be civil on everyone, you understand, and that is something me alongo is very important. But along Brahma to have it into Nimura Siri we have something in him against you, you understand. I can hardly some of them to even keep it, you understand. So that's happened in both sides. But at the end of it, what is more important, what should be our thought, what should be the mirror, how we are going to have a better country. And to have a better country in, like Omar Malmo again, we have to make sure we defend our right. Right tankadal. Now make sure Lua and from Bay Barawala. But ninta to a level, do in member wajako at a Lua ma the favor sign for the cool like a mealonco, at the Kala cool mealonco, at the better Lua Sandol, and then Yaka apply Lua farm, Lua farm. The only thing you have to do is to resist. You understand? Ibane balang, ye balang come balankura, ye balang kajako, you understand? It will left men will find us on the wall. And I think at some point, if you reach to that level, that should be the every stand. When they call mobile stand, because Bango Mayalonko, Lua Montaraje is going to be an animal farm, and I don't think we actually want to be in an animal farm. So the best thing is we are all youngsters, like Omar Malmo. I mean, for me, that is me. I don't insult in the internet. I don't come and comment in Mola from God. Okay, come on. I come. And then I tell you what exactly it is. You understand? I mean, Nina internet but coming to get to Mola at some point personal. I'm always very cautious about that. But I'm very, 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 very cautious about that. But at the end of the day, I am very happy that Yansaman Young. And so you were patient with us and but inshallah I wish next time I have a very good internet, you understand, and I can able to have a great conversation with Barende or more of a policy, because I want to hear. Remember, no, is a policy. I know policy in the UMC policy quote that I
Nko,
Go.
Akanda.
But Marin UMC board.
I don't want to be with him saying that not to put Kara, I'm Barno Beje, Barno Mina, I pushing for your agenda when you police fire, no agenda fire, and then we move on. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
No, Abaraka Bake, Sonko, Abaraka Bake, Omar. Omar didn't take, of course, the audience will remember we talk a lot about being and appreciate Nyaming, and what you continue to do, how available you are. And in fana ika do ko minke elapati ya
mera UDP le now uncle ma happy
I know he's gonna try to get you so understandably so, but anyways, audience told me Uncle Alpha Mbejang, a lot of people were watching the entire time. I want to say thank you all very much for being here, for your comments. Mark Jane I can't give my phone number publicly, so I'm sorry I couldn't let you call. But hopefully we'll create some time where we can also have you if you have opinions that you want to share. But I cannot for the life of me share my number publicly. Probably on call. Mobile full mobile clean katara mol bulo kono. So thank you all very much. Also, again, this interview is available on YouTube, Dialectic Space Podcast. Omar Malmo is on Facebook. Please go to his Facebook and follow him at a live kele almost every other day on a variety of issues, including who killed the cops. That conversation is going. Most weekends, Omar and I, here and there, we have conversations. So stick around, keep communicating, keep engaging, and also let's keep the dialogue going. Once again, Omar, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother. You have a good night.
You too, brother.